All right, guys, so let's talk about New World and my thoughts on this game. The only things I can say that are negative about the game is the PvP scaling for low levels. There's a lot of advantage that they do get over players who actually put time in the game and level up. I think that if you're willing to queue yourself for PvP, there should not be an advantage over someone who's higher level than you. However, as a high level, there's no advantage for me killing low levels because they don't really give me experience or any faction points necessarily unless they've killed a lot of people around their level. So for me, I feel like there shouldn't be that huge of a difference in how much of a buff that these low level players get. Like if they're taking a fort, they're taking the fort at their own risk, right? For someone to come there and stop them, they should not take a reduced amount of damage. That's my biggest thing that bothers me is I do reduced damage, they do increased damage, right? And that's because obviously I'm spec'd for fighting people my level, right? Which will be typical amongst most of your high level 50s and 60s. They're going to be rolling a little bit of extra dex for crit. The rest is going to be their primary damage stat, and then at least 100 constitution, right? So that's the typical build for most people in game in this game, depending on who they are. I'm sure healers even go with the 5% crit because it makes sense. They deal more damage, they heal more, right? It's just the way it is. Now, another thing that is kind of a pet peeve with the game is the drawbacks are a lot of, at least in the beta, the boss monsters effects don't always show up. So it could be that pool of fire that you're standing in that you just don't notice, and then you're dead because you can't see it. Or the laser that comes out of one boss's arm and he's shooting it across the map at 180 degrees and you can't see it. This all becomes easy to understand once you get there and you understand that, oh, okay, this is what he's doing. You understand how the fight goes. It's much easier. Now there's even the level 35 dungeons where there are invisible lasers everywhere and you don't know if they're on or off, and you just try to walk through, and it takes a few tries to understand that, oh, okay, that makes sense. They're just not rendering. Now, those are the only real issues I see with the game, outside of some of the quests ended around 48, and then there was like a lull in quests for the most part up until, I mean, you got quests here and there, but it was like a batch of quests at 53 and a few at 50 and 51, but it was like not enough to keep you leveling. So you had to physically go out and do faction quests over and over and over, and it's really boring. It's not fun. So maybe they're going to bring more quests in after the beta. Let's hope for that. But let's talk about what you guys are here for and what I think you should focus on early on in the game when you play this game is going to have to be, you need to focus on your gathering skills. You should get logging to 50 by the time you're 15, level 15. Mining to 50 by the time you're 15. Harvesting, and then just make sure you're skinning everything you can. All right, because the skinning makes everything easier when you're looking for certain, mobs or monsters later on for quests. They show up on your little your compass up here at the top, which makes it that much easier to find them, and you don't have to just constantly be scanning. All you have to do is look, scan once, it'll show up on your screen, and you just go and kill them. Super easy. Now, the reason you want to get all these skills to 50, guys, is because it opens nodes that you would be able to hit to get like your air, your death, your life, all the nodes that are required for Arcana and jewel crafting. And even some of your other crafting. Now, the reason this is big is because this is going to help you power level your Arcana, as well as you can sell them to people for an absorbent amount because they probably are too lazy to go and farm those things themselves. It's a great money maker. Now, your scanning, your logging, your mining, all these things are going to be super cheap around 2 weeks after release. Like, literally, silver is not worth shit, or at least it wasn't in the beta. And it's going to go back up once people start to focus on, jewel crafting, which, in my opinion, engineering and jewel crafting are going to be the best to max out early on, because jewels in particular, your rings, your earrings, your amulets are going to be the hardest to get good stats on. And with jewel crafting, people will be able to actually craft those and make those for people, and they can charge an absorbent amount, because outside of dungeons it's very hard to find jewelry. And I've only found a few pieces of jewelry outside of dungeons, and one of them was an epic at level 33 while grinding 40 elites. So you got to keep that into mind. Most of my other upgrades have been upgrades via quests, and some of them are items that rolled for a stat that I can't even use, like focus, because I'm not a healer, right? So those are things that are huge to make sure you're paying attention to. And honestly, guys, do all the quests. Quests are the fastest way of leveling early game, and it doesn't slow down, once again, until 48. Now, at level 42, you start to get gear that you can get through quests, and then they top out at level 60. And it says level 60. The mobs are going to be pretty high level, but as you're leveling, these quests are going to be easier because you can kill most mobs within 6 levels of you. Trust me, 6 to 8 levels. As long as your skills are good enough to where they're going to help you sustain your own life and or deal enough damage to kill them before they kill you. You can single pull most mobs in this game. It's very easy. And I'm going to show you some of these actual things that you get. Now, this armor, the word armor and the shroud armor, the shrouded armor, you do not want to delete. It starts out as blue armor, and then they give you tokens once you finish the quest lines for these to upgrade them to this that you see here, this level 54 gear. Now that's pure dexterity. That's really good for a few different types of builds. Not only that, you get the word, which is going to be a DPS type build for your great axes. It's light armor, so that means that it is most likely going to be, since it's strength only, it's going to be for someone who is running a great axe, or maybe even a sword and board. If you wanted to go DPS though with sword and board, the real stuff that you want to go with is going to be the strengthened battle embrace helm and this gear set, because it gives strength and dexterity. You can basically run this shield or this sword or any sword that has primary stats strength and dex, or strength and con, or a higher level sword, of course, because by the time you're 54 you want to have something that's similar to your level. You could run either this on a damage build and you will do massive amounts of damage, high cooldowns or fast cooldowns, because especially in war, if you're fighting the large group of players, you're going to be doing massive damage because you're just always going to have your cooldowns coming up repeatedly over and over and over. You can also do the back line, and you can use the abyssal strike that you get from the 45 dungeons or any other spear, and you can use that for AoE knockdowns. Not only that, this spear hits hard. All the spears hit hard. These are single target weapons. Like, you can melt people. Even the sword and board does really good damage. You would just have to, I don't know if you want to go full heavy. I probably wouldn't because of mobility. I would probably try to get the shield in there and do a little bit of extra mobility. The reason we don't use a shield, guys, right now is because the shield adds to your weight. So if I were to go with this build, I would probably have to run some dexterity pieces with plate and a shield. And then the shield, the actual shield only gives you stats when you have the sword and board on. If you don't have sword on, the shield's useless. It's not a stat stick like people thought originally. So just keep that in mind. These are all things. If you sat at the town hall board and you just leveled up through the town hall board the whole game, you probably don't understand that there are quests out there to get other items, or you probably don't understand that there's, dungeons that you can get better items for earlier on, because you're not going to be able to do much at level 60 if you don't have gear and you don't understand the game. Like, you can't PvP if you don't understand the game and your weapon skills aren't leveled up, right? So don't do that. Don't be the guy that runs the level 25 dungeon because someone told you to, because the level 25 dungeon loses its worth once you have the ability to unlock your faction gear at level 25, right? because there's not much you're going to get out of the 25
Choose your next contribution to our cause.
dungeon that's going to be better than, say, this. Even though it's level 20, you might find a slight upgrade for it, but I wouldn't run the level 25 dungeon for more than 2 to 3 times at the max. Maybe 4 or 5 times, because you just need to get to 25 to unlock your 25 gear, and then you can just move on to power leveling to 30 to 35 so that you can do the 30 dungeon, which is very easy as well, or the 35 dungeon. Also, guys, I wanted to talk to you about potions. Remember how I was saying earlier about the Arcana? You can make your own potions and sell them to players and make an absorbent amount of money. I was selling potions for a couple, it was like anywhere from 50 to 250 gold per, because people don't realize that once you finish the level 25 quest to unlock your gladiator status, you can buy level 3 potions. This is super cheap too. And you can buy all this armor and these weapons. These level 20 weapons are actually very good, and you can use them for a very long time. Then once you hit the 35 dungeons, you guys will get your Ravager quest. It's just kill quest, I believe, if I remember correctly. Super easy. You'll unlock your level 4 potions. And then you also will unlock level 40 armor, and you'll end up getting level 35 weapons. So there's no reason for you to ever buy any gear in this game aside from maybe your tools for mining and stuff like that, if you're too lazy to just get to the ability to make steel or star metal, right? So just saying, this is something you can do, and you will have much more success than, you know, what other people are doing. And by running a dungeon that's pretty much useless for you past a certain level, you're going to get rid of most of the gear. By the time you're 25 to 35, you should be getting rid of that gear by the time you're 35, right? That's why the faction gear is so good. It sets that threshold for where you can just, okay, I'll farm this out. We'll get all the gear sets. Then I'll go ahead and farm dungeons. And then if I get an upgrade for a weapon in the dungeon, cool. You're not going to find very many upgrades for the armor, because the armor reduces max cooldowns. You know, that's pretty crazy, and that's pretty good. Now, you could also, you could change the stats on this gear, although I don't think it's worth it until you get to the 54 gear, and I'm going to show you why. At level 55 gear, you can change with seals, and the seals actually turn this gear into purples, which gives you max cooldown reductions and crit hit reduction for damage on you. This is huge. With this, you're actually able to make fairly decent top tier gear with very little effort. And then you can use this until level 60 and or vice versa. And even the level 60 gear, which we have unlocked right here. So with the reason the level 40 gear is not so good to do that with is we did that with this. We use a seal. Let me show you guys so you understand what I'm talking about. So there are seals in the beginning right here that give focus in Constitution. There's intelligence in Constitution, dexterity in Constitution, strength in Constitution. Now, the reason this is good is you can actually use that on, once again, the 54 armor and turning it into some epic gear that is very good. And you can use it a level earlier than you would have been able to if you didn't do that. Now, the level 40 gear doesn't turn into epic gear. It just stays like this. You get crit hits, deal 4.2 less damage to you, but you lose the max cooldown times. So it's almost like, is that worth it? It's all up to you. Does the cooldown time matter to you enough? Probably not. You might want a heavy set of armor like I have so that you can tank mobs that are way higher level than you and do some work to them. Now, another cool thing is you can buy the level 50, like the level 60 gear. It's tier 5. This is basically your starter gear. Let me see if I can find it real quick. There it is. So this is one piece. So we did the heavy armor. We bought that for 15k. We used 100 to turn it into level 5 epic gear. Has the same stats as the level 4 gear, except it gives you, you know, just a tiny bit more of crit hit resistance and max cooldown reduction. And then not only that, the armor. So if I were to show you, let me see if I can find the other one that we have that's actually plate. Oh, here we go. So if you see right here, we're getting 31 more armor rating. So what that ends up doing is that gives us a tiny bit more health. It's a small upgrade, but the armor and the health can go a long way, especially if your build is dependent on being in the middle of 3 or 4 people and dealing a ton of damage to punish them when they're on top of you. That's what my spec does. That's why I switched over to this from the Great Axe. Great Axe is fun. It's a little OP. I do feel like it's going to get nerfed. So we'll see when the release happens. But we also get weapons from quests later on, level 51 weapons. We are using one of them. It's Falmea's Wrath. Really good. Siphoning Incinerate. Restore 7.5 mana per hit with Incinerate. So because we have our Incinerate maxed out, it double hits. So we get 15 mana per hit. So if there's 6 people around us, we're going to get 15 mana times 6. So we're going to fill up our mana again. Pretty crazy. And you get Fortify on critical hits. We're spec'd for critical hits. We deal quite a bit of critical hits. The Fortify does do a lot of work. So this is one of the weapons you get. Another weapon you get is there's a sword, and here it is. Sword we were talking about earlier, Keen Temper. This is one you also get. It's locked at level 40, but you can use that before you can use the Great Axe, which is the Executioner, level 51. This thing's pretty dang good too. These are all quest items. You can see they can be crafted by people as well, but the quests that give you these will allow you to craft these at a certain, amount of points. My weapon smithing, as we can see right here, is 38, and I was able to craft those. So you don't really have to go that high with them. Just to let you guys know, these are all things that are, in my opinion, pretty important. So for early game guys, I think engineering is the best. Once again, for just making the tools. End game, all of these will have value. Every single one of these will have a ton of value for you and your friends and your guild, your company, whatever you want to call it, for making end game tiers like gear. Like that tier gear in the end is going to be coming from crafting initially, and then maybe level 65 dungeons or whatever. So anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I tried not to make it too long. Hopefully you got a lot out of it. We'll be streaming this on Twitch live once the game re-releases on the 31st, and we probably will be streaming only this, to be fair. So we'll see you guys there.